Isa sa pinakaimportante siguro sa DFA na magkaroon sila ng sinatawag mong diplomacy and talks is yung protection ng ating mga marino. Kasi ang mga marino natin, many of them also work for oil companies na may mga oil tankers, boat, ships na nagtatrabaho sila sa loob na they will be protected and they will not, if in any case, hindi matarget yung kanilang, yung sinasakyan nilang mga barko or if in any case matarget, they will have protection. Yan ang isa sa pinaka-concrete na dapat, well, dapat kumilos ang gobyerno natin for the protection of the mga marino.
Sa ibang balita naman sa ibayong dagat, meron pong sinusulong 2 linggo na ceasefire ang Estados Unidos. Meron pong ongoing na usapan ang pumapagitna ata rito. Ang mediator ay ang Pakistan. Meron din pong proposal ang Iran ng 10-point peace proposal para mahinto na itong giyera. Pag-usapan natin po ito lalo na sa ating bansa kung papayagan ng makabiyahe sa loob ng 2 linggo yung mga barko na tangled dyan sa Strait of Hormuz. Asahan na ba natin na bababa rin ang presyo ng mga produktong petrolyo? Si Professor Ano Malindugoy, isang geopolitical analyst, makakasama natin. Prof, magandang gabi. Admar Vilando po yung makakasama.
Magandang gabi, Admar, at magandang gabi sa ating mga kababayan na nanonood sa programa nyo. It's good to be back in SMNI Nighttime News at sana ay nasa mabuting kalagayan ng ating mga kababayan na umaharap sa krisis na may kinalaman sa Middle East din na crisis. Yeah.
Opo, di natin maintindihan, Prof, ang nasa isip o kung ano ba, kung sincero ba sa lahat ng mga pinagsasabi ang presidente po ng Amerika kasi bago itong 2 linggo, meron pang
Mm-mm.
lilipulin yung civilization. May mga ganyan mga
May mga ganun pa.
termino, umabot pa nga sa punto na nangwenta siya doon sa Japan, Australia, South Korea na hindi tumulong sa kanya, pero
Mm-mm.
maraming mga sundalo, pero yung mga bansa pala na yun ay nagbabayad din pala.
Mm-mm.
Itong 2 weeks na ano, anong basa niyo po rito? Siyempre, ano ba ang mapapakinabang ng Pilipinas dito or makikinabang ba agad-agad?
I think itong 2 weeks na ceasefire na binobroker, I think it's Pakistan brokering the what you call talks, no, political dialogue between Iran and US and Israel side. Kasi ang Israel is part of this. I Well, 2 weeks is good, a good time to negotiate and to talk between the two sides. And if you ask me, kung titignan mo ang 10-point agenda ng Iran na gusto nilang mag-agree ang United States and of course of Israel, medyo, to be frank with you, hindi ko sure kung mag-agree ang United States on all those points. But one thing that you have to remember, ang alam ko, Iran also is in a strong position to demand all of these 10 na kung babasahin mo, for their own survival and protection and to uphold their so-called right to sovereignty. So, andyan nilahat. At saka, may hindi lang Iran dyan ang nakalagay, even Lebanon and Hezbollah and all other allies of Iran. So, medyo kung negotiation ang pag-usapan, medyo madugo yan na negosasyon. Now, kung ang tanong mo sa akin if it has benefits, of course it will have benefits first in humanitarian sense kasi syempre kapag may mga bombing from both sides, maraming casualty when you talk about civilian. Maraming namamatay, maraming infrastructure na nasisira at that is a cost to economy ng lahat ng bansa na involved dyan sa Middle East crisis or apektado sa Middle East crisis. On the Philippine side, it would also be a breather for us kasi ang ating OFWs, unang-una, apektado sila. So, it can give them breather, especially yung hindi umuwi pa. When it comes to the Philippines in terms of if it will help in terms of yung oil price increase na ang bilis ng pagtaas ng mga presyo sa Pilipinas, especially ng oil and energy related products, even yung prices ng goods, ang mayroon kang food inflation nangyayari because many things are imported from other countries, even basic commodities natin, at even our trade. Ibig sabihin economic trade natin, exports to other countries and even import from other countries for basic goods na kinukonsumo ng Pilipinas. If you ask me kung itong 2 week ceasefire may ano ba, kumbaga makakaluwag ba tayo? Not necessarily, to be frank. In a way, siguro, pero in terms of yung fighting, but I think in terms of the impact, I don't think so. Because that doesn't mean na may 2 weeks kang hindi bakbakan, halimbawa, open na ang Strait of Hormuz mo, totally open, na it will not be regulated as ng Iran. Hindi naman kasi ang sitwasyon as before the pre-Middle East war. Hindi ganon eh. Kumbaga, ang suspended lang dyan is yung bakbakan, ang bombing from both sides or fighting. But I don't think that's already kumbaga condition na babalik tayo sa regular na energy flows at saka yung traffic when you talk about trade kasi ang trade both on the may ano kay cargo, ang cargo mo shipping and at the same time it's both air and sea. So hindi naman ganun, hindi naman ibig sabihin nun babalikan sa normal kasi hindi naman nagkaroon ng kumbaga ng truce or tapos na ang gera. Temporary yan eh. So lahat ng tao na kumbaga lahat ng players naka-standby pero that doesn't mean that the whole situation changes. And even it doesn't also mean na easy na ang passage mo dun sa mga critical area, even let us say Strait of Hormuz na kung saan 20% ng trade when you talk about oil trade and even energy related parts dumadaan dun sa buong from Middle East to different parts of the world, especially to Asia, na tayo nasa Asia. So I don't think so really. Even to be frank with you, Admar, even if the war, let us say, no, hopefully after 2 weeks may political solution, nakuha ng Iran ang kanilang 10 points agenda or negotiating points binigay sa kanila. Things will not be that easy too. It will take time and process to go back to the pre-Middle East war na nangyayari ngayon. Kasi una, may reconstruction ka. Ang reconstruction of facilities. Even the oil-producing countries, may mga infrastructure sila na dahil sa gulo, natamaan, na-destroy. So it takes time to reconstruct. And it also take time, at saka may money involved dyan. So hindi ganun ka rapid ang kung tinatawag mong kumbaga revitalization and recovery. Hindi ganon. So ang Pilipinas hindi dapat maging complacent na kapag sinabi mo may 2 weeks ceasefire at may negotiation na mangyayari, hindi na tayo magsusumikap na ayusin ang energy flow natin at pag-usapan kung ano ang mga dapat gawin para maibsan ang tinatawag mong food inflation sa Pilipinas na nangyayari na nagsushoot up lahat ng prices and even electricity and all of this, basic commodities and basic services. Kasi I don't think it will impact the 2 weeks ceasefire. I don't think it will have a very huge impact in terms of recovery and in terms of going back to the normal situation before because now it's not normal. So ganun ang tingin ko. And I think my opinion is being shared by many others in the international level when you talk about people who understand what's going on at the moment dito sa nangyayaring Middle East war or crisis, kung ano ang impact nito at paano ito anong nangyayari at anong mangyayari in a matter of time. And also one thing din, Admar, that you have to understand, itong 2 weeks, nila yon, kumbaga, okay, may 2 weeks silang agreed na, okay, pag-usapan natin ang mga bagay-bagay na nasa listahan ng Iran. Si Trump, mayroon din siyang sariling negotiating point at saka syempre Israel would be part of it. Now, hindi natin alam kung sa initial nilang usapan, day 1, day 2, magkakaroon ng agreement. May mga possibilities dyan na may gitgitan din na baka hindi pa matapos ang 2 weeks, balik na sila sa gera. So, ito yung mga realities na kailangan natin subaybayan at tignan na kung saan ang Pilipinas should never be complacent sa mga nangyayari. So, ito yung tingin ko na posibleng mangyari.
Opo. Yung usapan natin with Iran, di ko alam kung meron na bang counter statement yung Iran, di ba?
Wala.
Patungkol sa doon sa napapayagan na. And may information po ba kayo kung Kasi may mga pahayag ang DOE na meron na daw nakakadaan doon, pero petrochemicals hindi daw. So parang ano ang meron ba tayong mga ano doon, Philippine flag na ship na dumadaan na
Wala naman
doon,
tayong tanker
nagdadala?
eh.
Kasi
We don't have oil tanker.
i-import lang tayo sa mga
Oo,
bansa. Wala talaga tayong kumukuha
wala
talaga doon.
tayong we don't directly import na halimbawa, yun na nga this is really funny. Well, in a way, I think it's part of the whole kind of trying to boost confidence on the part of Marcos Jr. government. Yung mga usapin na the DFA, like Secretary Lazaro, had conversation with the ambassador or whoever Iranian officials na nakausap niya saying na pinapayagan ang Pilipinas na makadaan dyan sa Strait of Hormuz when you talk about oil supply. Well, diplomatically, it's a good thing. I mean, it's a good optics for the Philippines and even for Marcos Jr. administration. Magandang optics siya eh. Na, okay, may leverage pa lang Philippines and diplomatically, we can actually talk to Iran na, ang supply kung magkakaroon tayo ng supply of oil from that part of the world na dadaan sa Strait of Hormuz is okay lang sa kanila. Optics wise, diplomacy, in terms of diplomacy, it's a good optics. However, in reality, we don't even have oil tanker. Do we have an oil tanker that possibly will pass through Strait of Hormuz? Wala naman eh. Wala naman. Do we really have one? No. Ang ano doon kasi, isa sa pinaka-importante siguro sa DFA na magkaroon sila ng sinatawag mong diplomacy and talks is yung protection ng ating mga marino. Kasi ang mga marino natin, many of them also work for oil companies na may mga oil tankers, boat, ships na nagtatrabaho sila sa loob na they will be protected and they will not, if in any case, hindi matarget yung sinasakyan nilang mga barko or if in any case matarget, they will have protection. Yan ang isa sa pinaka-concrete na dapat kumilos ang gobyerno natin for the protection of the mga marino. Pero when you talk about oil, I think we buy from Southeast Asian countries and we buy actually from China when you talk about diesel kasi 40%. But we don't have an oil tanker to even say na, we are allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz when you talk about oil supply because we don't have that. So marami kaya nakikriticize ang DFA kasi yung kanilang projection is as if the Philippines has that tanker or what you call boats or cargo ships na atin na magde-deliver na may flag ng Pilipinas. Wala tayo noon. Kaya yun nga sinasabi nila budol ulit daw itong mga ganitong mga pronouncement coming from the Marcos Jr. government, basically from the DFA. So sa akin naman, to be fair with DFA and to Secretary Lazaro, it was a diplomatic gesture. I think but I think they should focus more on trying to convince Iran that, the Philippines is not a hostile state to Iran. And I think that even though we are an ally of the United States because we have the Mutual Defense Treaty, it doesn't mean that, we're also like an enemy of Iran. I think that should be the diplomacy that diplomacy work should focus on that. And I think protection of ng mga marino natin. Pero when you talk about oil flow and when you talk about cargo of oil from that point, I don't see it really. Kasi wala naman talaga eh. Wala tayong mga vessels na atin. Tayo dependent doon sa binibilhan natin ng supply. Like for example, China. We import from China diesel, pero hindi ko lang alam ngayon kung nag-resume na ang China na they can export or still and they can export diesel to us kasi nag-announce sila na hindi na. And so something to that, and the Chinese, they really have this tanker passing through Strait of Hormuz, but China is a friend of Iran, so they don't have that problem. Pero sa atin, yan ang hindi ko maintindihan din eh. Kaya kung makikita mo sa social media, ang daming criticism at marami nagsasabi na budol-budol daw. Kasi I think it's more about explaining properly the situation and making it more truthful. And I think making it more truthful in a sense na, alam mo yun, na would really tell the Filipino people kung ano ba talaga ang reality at paano nga ba tayo nagkakaroon ng supply ng oil or ng oil-related products na wala naman talaga tayong tanker. So, kung sasabihin ng Iran na, okay, pwede kayo mag-pass, alam din ng Iran na wala naman talaga tayong tanker na sarili natin na papasok dyan. So, madali lang sabihin ng Iran na, okay, no problem, it's okay. So, alam mo yon, it's really more optics and it's really more about, well, diplomatic optics as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Opo. Pero kasi bumibili tayo doon sa mga nabanggit
Mm,
niyo po ng mga lugar. Pero still mataas pa rin ang
cost.
magiging cost niyan kahit 2 linggo ang itatagal.
Oo. Oo, sabi ko nga kanina, Admar, mataas pa rin yan. It
Pero
will not
bakit
bring down
bakit
the prices
prof?
of goods.
Bakit prof pag nagkagulo doon, ay mga ilang araw lang, isang araw lang biglang sumipa agad yung presyo rito. Pero
Ah,
pag
yan
nag
ang problema
pero pag
din. No?
nagkaroon ng peace, halimbawa ganito na
Okay.
magkakaroon ng ceasefire muna. Dadaan yung mga barko papayagan for 2 weeks. Eh hindi mabilis ang pagbaba. Bakit kaya?
Hindi kasi yun ang problema ng Pilipinas kasi mga opportunista din kasi ang iba nating mga pag may alam may mga oligarchs tayo na may-ari ng mga oil companies or even foreign oil companies na very opportunistic naman ang dating na pag halimbawa nagkaroon ng gulo, well, definitely the intuition is tataas ang presyo ng langis kasi oil producing countries nga ang nasa Gulf state, eh eventually magtataas din sa Pilipinas, sisipa agad ang pagtaas ng presyo ng mga bilihin dahil sumipa ang pagtaas ng presyo ng langis. Well, to be very honest, dapat hindi ganun ka-automatic yun. Kasi supposedly may buffer ka, may supply ka pa. As far as the DOE is concerned, the Department of Energy, na sinasabi nila, well, nabasa ko kanina, before 45 days. Ngayon, sinasabi na may 50 days daw until the end of May. So, kung may ganun kang sitwasyon, dapat ang pagsipa at pagtaas ng presyo ng mga ng langis at oil-related products like diesel, gasoline, and oil, and even pagtaas ng presyo ng pagkain at saka iba pa, well, to certain extent dapat hindi siya ganun bilis sumipa na every week makikita mo increase ng increase kasi supposed to be may buffer ka eh. 'Di ba? Kasi may supply ka pa, hindi pa naman nandun sa well, malapit sa crunch pero hindi pa talaga crunch. If we will take the Department of Energy pronouncement na really there is such a thing as still supply or buffer na would last 50 days or 45 days. So, ganun. Pero ang problema sa Pilipinas, may mga ano ka talaga, mga oligarchs at the same time, well, oligarchs in many ways and also yung corporations at saka mga business establishment at businessmen na they take opportunity at tinitake advantage nila yung ganitong sitwasyon to increase prices of goods. However, one thing also that you have to remember, may mga batas ang Pilipinas tulad ng Oil Deregulation Law na hindi kaya ng gobyerno or ng state na i-control ang presyo ng, halimbawa, ng langis, ang pagsipa ng or pag-increase ng presyo. Kasi hindi nila hawak yan eh. Dahil may batas kang ganyan eh. So kaya nga, ang dapat tignan siguro ng gobyerno tulad ni Marcos Jr. since we are in a state of national energy emergency, is paano mo i-amyendahan ng mabilisan yung mga batas na existing na hindi nila makontrol ang pagsipa ng pagtaas ng presyo ng mga bilihin. Kasi well, almost everything in the country is privatized. So kapag privatize ka, ang gobyerno, walang direct na control yan. Tapos ang ginagawa ng mga halimbawa companies, pagtaas ng presyo, hindi naman sila ang nagbe-bear ng crunch eh. Pinapasan nila sa consumer. So it's us consumers na nakaka-feel ng crunch at saka ng difficulty kasi tayo ang nagbe-bear ng increase. Halimbawa, nag-increase ang kanilang cost when you talk about delivery kasi yung insurance tumaas dahil nga sa gera and all of others, ang transportation tumaas. Pag pag binenta nila yung produkto sa atin, malangis man yan or mabigas man yan or anything imported, hindi naman sila ang nagbabayad nung ano eh, yung taas ng cost eh. Tina-transfer nila agad yan sa consumer. So, ang ordinaryong Pilipino ang nagaano diyan, ang nagsasuffer diyan. At saka ang gobyerno dapat, you have what you call buffer fund. Like for example, oil. Pag tumaas, kapag may buffer fund ka, hindi mararamdaman ng mga Pilipino na tumataas kasi nababuffer ng gobyerno yan eh. Pero, well, may mga existing laws tayo that will not allow or will constrain the government or the state itself na, sa mga ganitong supposedly what you call mitigating measure. So yun yung problema ng Pilipinas. And one thing that we need to realize at this time, with all of this problem, yung crunch time because of the Middle East crisis and the existing economic struggle of the country, is many of our basic commodities and no, many of our basic services, even oil companies, all of these are privatized. And these are controlled not by government, but these are not national industries. These are controlled by private sector or even the oligarchs. And this is the problem when you have a crunch time and you have facing like a war, even though it's far, pagdating sa may impact pa rin sa Pilipinas at hindi makagalaw ang gobyerno kasi hindi yan national industry eh. Unlike other countries like for example in China or other countries like even Vietnam or Cambodia or Singapore or even Malaysia, ang may-ari ng kanilang halimbawa ng train, ng electricity nila, ng grid nila or even halimbawa ng oil companies nila, gobyerno or the state. So the state can control, can impose ceiling sa presyo na, ops, wag tataas kasi mahihirapan ang mga tao. May ganon. They can do that. They can control the price increase. And the government will put buffer para hindi ang mag-bear ng crunch is yung mga tao. Pero in the Philippines, it's not like that eh. Kasi lahat ng industry natin na basic industry, basic services is privatized. So this is something that we need to also reflect and realize na hindi ibig sabihin na alam mo kawawa ang Pilipino dito eh, to be frank eh. Yung mga ganitong sitwasyon, kapag ang basic commodities mo at basic services mo hindi hawak ng state at hindi pwedeng pakialaman ng gobyerno to a greater extent, dahil hindi nga nila hawak yan at hindi yan nationalized, ganyan ang mangyayari. Kasi really, private sector or even the oligarchs o itong mga businessman, they will always transfer yung increase of cost sa consumer. And the consumer basically refers to us regular Filipinos. Tayo ang magbe-bear niyan. Always. That's always the case.
Opo. Dito po sa 10-point peace proposal, balikan ko lang, nababanggit nyo kanina, parang tingin nyo hindi rin tatanggapin ito ng Estados Unidos o ng Israel.
Isa-isay natin, Admar ha, permanent end to the war, reject any temporary ceasefire. Well, the word permanent itself is very debatable. What do you mean by that? So, pero kung ako si Trump, tanggapin ko na to, no? Pero ano yung guarantee na may permanent na no attack on Iran? Kasi the word permanent is loaded. Second, guarantee that Iran will not be attacked again. Well, siguro naman, kaya naman ibigay siguro ng United States ito at saka ng Israel. But maybe the United States can give in. Pero what about Israel? Kasi ang Israel, with the likes of Netanyahu, talaga ang kanilang ultimate purpose is talagang ma-eliminate ang Iran. Because ang Iran is a regional power that, kalaban, yung sa perception ba nila, kalaban nila. So, ang third is, and Israel strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon. So, ang question is not even on the United States. The question is if Israel will really agree to this. Very difficult itong number 3. Number 1 and number 3. Number 1 is debatable, permanent, and to war, which is good but very hard for as far as the United States is concerned. The third one, and Israel strike against Hezbollah. I don't know if Israel will give in to this. The other one is halt to all regional attacks and not just against Iran. So, ito naman, I think okay to. Number 4, kaya. Madali lang. Kasi hindi lang Iran daw wag i-attack lahat ng regionals. Oh, well, good naman yan. Ito naman number 5, full lifting of all US and international sanction on Iran. This is very difficult. Kasi pag sinabi mong international sanction, embargo of oil. The nuclear program of Iran, both civilian and military. Kasi right now, before the strike against Iran by the United States and Israel, there was a negotiations ongoing between United States and Iran saying na ang Iran willing na sila na okay, yung aming military aspiration to have nuclear weapons and hindi na namin gagawin yan, ito na lang kami dito sa energy sa civilian, for civilian. So may ganon, mayroon ng willingness ang Iran to even surrender that kind of aspiration na magkaroon sila ng nuclear weapon. Pero right now after this war, I don't think so. I think they will really demand na, alam mo yun, they pursue. Kasi ito yung isa sa kanilang demand. And one of the sanction against Iran is this very specific nuclear program ng Iran. I don't think Iran will negotiate on that. So that is very difficult. And number 5 is very difficult. Number 6, in return, Iran will lift its blockade and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Kung papayag, so ng 1 to 3 to 4, 5, which is okay naman. Number 7, a protocol for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Okay then, related to number 6 and number 7. Number 8, Iran will impose a transit fee of $2 million per ship, per barko. $2 million na dadaan. That's a very expensive cost. Pero yun ang gusto nila because they need to recover funds and also they need to earn money kasi re-reconstruct nila ang kanilang nasirang infrastructure at ang bansa nila na tinarget-target at binomba-bomba. So I think that's possibly revenue generation. So 2 million per ship, ha? Oh my God. I don't know if Israel and US will agree to this and other countries. Kasi ang tanker na pumapasok dyan sa Strait of Hormuz, hindi lang naman US eh. Marami pa. Pero magkakaroon sila ng fee. And number 9 is the fee will be split with Oman. Kasi Oman is very close to the Strait of Hormuz. Geography speaking. And number 10, reconstruction of infrastructure destroyed by US and Israel demanded as a separate condition. So ibig sabihin, ang reconstruction ng Iran to restore Iran to the pre-war period would be paid by Israel and the United States. Ang tanong, papayag ba ang United States given that if you really look at the United States right now, every day this Middle East war is costing them $2 billion US. That was Dr. David O told me when I had an interview with him last Monday night. So sabi ko, ang laki, $2 billion ang cost almost every day. So kung ganun na ang cost ng ng United States, tapos ikaw pa nagdidemand ng Iran na ikaw ang magbabayad sa reconstruction namin since binomba-bomba mo kami, malaking usapin yun. So if you really look at the 10-point negotiating point and agenda of Iran to facilitate what you call permanent end to the conflict na mayroon ngayon during the 2-week ceasefire. These are not easy agenda to talk about and discuss. And that's even on the part of Iran only. Mayroon bang negotiating point din si Trump at saka yung Israel na gusto nilang sundin ng Iran na kapag hindi yan nagtugma at hindi nag-agree, within 2 weeks, resume na naman sila sa kanilang gera. So, what I'm saying is the reality with all of these are not easy negotiating points, and it will take a lot of discussion and a lot of what you call political will from both sides to even settle kung anong kaya nilang i-give way doon sa 10 at ano yung pwedeng i-push. On the other hand, ang tingin ko sa Iran from my reading and from the reports na nababasa ko and of course discussion with other people in the international level na sinusubaybayan itong Iran conflict, Iran will not give in. Iran will be strong and it has a strong position to negotiate and to push for what you call the 10 na agenda nila in this political dialogue with the United States. So hindi natin alam, 'di ba? Well, we will see. We will see. Pero mahirap 'yun, ha. I'm not kidding, Admar. Mahirap yung 10-point on the part of Iran na hinihingi nila sa Israel and the United States. And I'm not sure if Trump is even capable or even willing and even the United States will be able to comply with all of these things, and give in. So yan ay something that we need to monitor and we will see in a matter of time in the next 2 weeks. Yeah.
Opo. Dito naman po sa mga hakbang na pinopropose po no ng ilan sa mga mambabatas like kagaya po ni Congressman Leandro Leviste na baka pwede nating kung ano yung matipid, magtipid tayo doon sa kasi tayo ang host sa ASEAN for this
Ah,
year at napakalaking pondo po ang inilaan. Po pwede ba tayong maging simple lang like kagaya sa panahon po ng pandemya ba na gano'n yung setup para at least ano and may epekto po ba kung mag-adjust muna si Pilipinas bilang host sa ASEAN kasi pinuna rin ng mga Pilipino yung mga post ng First Lady na nagtitikim-tikim na ng mga pagkain na pwedeng isilbi, ano na, food taste ata para sa kasi host tayo po ng mga bisita ng mula sa mga iba't ibang mga bansa dito po sa ASEAN, Prof.
oh, actually magandang tanong 'yan kasi kung mayroon kang crisis sa Pilipinas, naghihirap ang mga Pilipino, crunch time, ang budget actually totoo diyan yung ASEAN hosting mo at saka pagiging ASEAN chair. Malaki ang budget na ilalaan talaga ng current government diyan. Kasi syempre delegation, halimbawa isang country delegation pa lang, ang dami na niyan eh. Tsaka hindi mo naman pwedeng ilagay yan sa mga pipitsugin hotel at hindi mo naman pwedeng papakainin yan ng mga kung ano-ano lang unless you're willing, 'di ba? Na sabihin sa kanila na o dito lang kayo sa hotel na star number ano lang, star 1 or star 2, hindi yung 5 star, 'di ba? Parang ganun. So, malaki talaga ang pondo na ilalaan diyan at probably nilaan na diyan. Ang problema, we have a crisis and also even before the Middle East war, malaki na ang problema ng Pilipinas in terms of economy and even in terms of budget. So kung tatanungin mo ako kung nag-agree ako doon kay Leviste, Congressman Leviste na magtipid-tipid. Well, dapat talaga may austerity measure. And you need to find a way na you're still be hosting kasi chair tayo ng ASEAN this year eh. That's even the thing eh. Kasi alam mo, before pa ito mangyari, mayroon ng mga suggestion na kung pwede, ipasa na muna yung chairmanship, halimbawa sa next in line, kasi ang Pilipinas, it seems na magulo nga, may domestic problem ka, may corruption ka, ang daming problema, economic struggle natin as a country, and then ngayon, dumating pa itong Middle East crisis. Kumbaga, doon muna sa iba na mas economically stable and mas wealthy, mas mayaman na bansa tulad ng Singapore. So pero hindi tinuloy ni Marcos Jr. So ngayon, responsibilidad natin na ngayon kung magtitipid ka, okay, talagang kailangan mo magtipid, siguro kailangan mong tignan kung saan ka alam mo yun, ito-tone down mo ba ang cost na hindi siya masyadong bongga, hindi siya masyadong sosyal, at wag tayong magkunwari na, alam mo yun, kukunwari ka na sosyal-sosyal, ang bongga-bongga, pero ang mga Pilipino ay naghihirap at hindi kumakain ng 3 beses isang araw dahil sa economic crisis na kinaharap ng bansa. Napaka-hypocritical naman nun. At alam naman ng mga ASEAN counterparts natin and even ASEAN partners na the Philippines is not the wealthiest country in ASEAN. So, siguro, magpakatotoo tayo na, you need to tone down. Siguro, medyo wag masyadong, try to economize ba? But you can still be hosting ASEAN events in the Philippines na meaningful naman, substantial yung meetings, but not to the point na sobrang social and sobrang bongga. But the problem that you have to remember is, the Marcoses, including probably the First Lady, are not known for being frugal, are not known for being economized, are not known for economizing things when you talk about susyalan, party, at, hosting an event or hosting like a party or something, hindi sila known for that eh. They're known for being extravagant and they're known for being, bongga-bongga and social-social. That's what I know. Well, hindi lang naman ako yan eh. Maraming mga tao and boom, the whole Philippines, the whole world know that. So, sa akin, hopefully, i-tone down yan kasi malaking budget niyan. Kung ang ibang budget dyan is shift mo to help our kababayan na naghihirap, better siguro. And we should not be hypocritical kasi magbubongga-bongga ka tapos mamaya makikita ng mga delegates coming from different countries kung anong sitwasyon ng Manila and ng the rest of the Philippines, nakakahiya yun. Better to be more authentic and authentic sa kung ano talaga ang sitwasyon natin. I think other countries and other leaders in ASEAN would appreciate that. Pero, well, I don't know if yung suggestion na magtipid, maging frugal, at maging, well, meaningful pa rin ang hosting, but not too bongga, not social-social, and, try to be hypocrite na you can afford this, and that, pero hindi naman pala kaya ng ekonomiya mo, and it cost a lot to the economy and to other, ang nagsasuffer pala ang mga Pilipino, yun ang problema natin sa current administration. Kasi, well, we all know that the Marcoses, even the First Lady, is not known for being frugal or being thrifty or something to that effect. We know that. I think everyone knows. So,
Opo.
ganun ang challenge doon. Now, kung makikinig naman ang gobyerno and they will follow suggestions like that, good. But if not, then what can we do? They're in power. So, yun ang problema.
Opo, Prof, may epekto po ba sa tingin ninyo yung una tayong nag-declare na meron tayong energy emergency, ang termino nila is
The first country.
emergency, naging headline tayo sa
Mm.
buong mundo kumpara dito sa ating mga karatig na mga bansa sa Southeast Asia. Tayo talaga yung pinakaunang nag-declare. Tayo rin yung yata yung ayaw pang aminin na may crisis. Emergency
Yun
lang
nga
daw.
eh.
Oo, may kaibahan daw yata yung emergency sa
So,
crisis. Ano pong basa niyo po rito in terms po sa dating nito sa ating mga kapitbahay na mga bansa, sa mga bansa na nanghihimok tayo, na magkaroon po ng mga negosyo sila dito, Prof?
Una, tama. Ang Pilipinas ang first na ang unang bansang nag-declare across the world ng State of National Energy Emergency. Anong ibig sabihin? Precisely because may pangangamba dun sa supply ng ng flow of energy, or what you call oil flow, and at the same time energy stability in the Philippines. That's why you declare that. So kung ikaw ay from other countries o from an international perspective, hindi ka Pilipino, kumbaga observer ka ng Pilipinas, ano yung messaging na sinasabi noon, yung state of energy emergency national, no? Ibig sabihin, the Philippines is not energy secured. It has what you call energy insecurity. And to certain extent, it does not, well, it did not actually, kumbaga, dun sa tinatawag mong investment climate sa Pilipinas, or investors, or even the current investor in the Philippines, hindi siya magandang signal. Kasi ibig sabihin, may insecurity ang Pilipinas when you talk about energy. So, yun ang messaging mo. Kung ang tatanungin mo mga tao na nasa labas ng Pilipinas or the international level or international community, yun ang masasagap nila. Now, ano yung impact nun when you talk about economics and when you talk about investment climate in the Philippines? Well, it was an exposure to the whole world that the Philippines really is energy insecure, which is true din to a greater extent. True naman yan eh. Hindi rin naman natin na makakailan nun. Kasi if you look at the Philippines, when you talk about oil supply, we're import dependent almost 100%. So, and not only that, with other products, even rice, even other basic commodities, we're import dependent too. We cannot even have food security kasi kalamihan ng ating mga produkto na kinakain na basic staple food ay ini-import natin. So it gives an image to the whole international community na ganito ang sitwasyon ng Pilipinas, that we are not energy secured, we're not food secure. So when you talk about investment, of course, mag-iisip yung mga investors dyan na, ang Pilipinas pala ganito ang sitwasyon. And at the same time, ano yung connotation kasi dyan? Kasi when you do business in the Philippines, it's very expensive compared to other countries in ASEAN. Because totoo naman din to. Kasi mataas din naman talaga ang cost ng mga businessmen at saka investors sa Pilipinas. Kasi even the basic commodities are very expensive compared to other ASEAN countries. Totoo naman yan. Pero mas na-amplify pa nung ganitong sitwasyon. And of course, na-headline talaga ang Pilipinas, the first country to declare state of national energy emergency. Which is, ang sinasabi naman nila, ang crisis and emergency is not the same. Yeah, probably in terms of semantics, hindi siya the same. Kasi emergency and crisis. But come on, give me a break. How would you define crisis? How would you define emergency? Mas mahirap nga yung emergency na word kaysa sa crisis. Kasi emergency, ibig sabihin, nandun ka na talaga sa, kumbaga, ito yung bangin, paano ka na eh, malalaglag ka na, emergency nga eh. So, hindi ko maintindihan ang propaganda at saka yung optics na pinapalabas ng Malacanang na sinasabi nila, everything is okay, there's no such thing as a crisis, there's no such thing as an oil crisis. When everything is rising up, oil, food, everything, every week nagre-rise up. So yun ang sinasabi ko, napaka-detached ng Malacanang at ng gobyerno ni Marcos Jr. sa realidad ng buhay at sa mga nangyayari sa Pilipinas at saka na-experience ng regular na mga Pilipino. Yun yung problema. Why are you making a smoke screen when everyone in the country is already experiencing all of this problem? Tapos sasabihin mo, okay lang, walang problema ang Pilipinas, we're good, we don't have crisis, we don't have oil crisis or energy supply crisis whatsoever. Ano yun? Yun naman sa domestic level, ang nakakainis na para bang, anong tingin mo sa amin? Hindi namin alam at wala kaming pakiramdam at hindi namin nakikita na hindi na nga kami gumagamit ng aircon kasi mahal masyado ang kuryente dahil sumipa na lahat, yung pataas. So yun ang tingin ko diyan na para bang bakit ba kailangan nila ng ganitong mga pronouncement? It's like, why are you trying to make the whole Philippines like stupid people when in fact we all know kung ano ang talaga ang state of, kumbaga ano yung state of affairs at ano talaga ang totoong state ng Pilipinas when you talk about energy, when you talk about economics, when you talk about the dollar to a peso. Alam mo yun, yung isa lang na kailangan mong tignan na indicator eh. $1 is equivalent already, i-round off mo to 61 pesos. That's already an indication that there's a problem and there's a crisis in the Philippines when you talk about economics. So, hindi na tayo magpaligoy-ligoy pa. At from there, maraming epekto yan. And then, another thing is, yung debt mo, from 17 trillion to 18 point something trillion, it's already an indication that we really have a crisis and we're facing a crisis. So, napaka-crazy naman ng Malacanang at especially ng PCO na sasabihin niya na, oh, everything is okay, we don't have a problem, we don't have a crisis. That's crazy because that is not the reality that the Filipino people is facing. So, all of this are optics and trying to, this is not the way you calm down the Filipino people. Alam mo, one example that I really like when you talk about how the government is trying to make the people understand kung ano ang realidad ng buhay given the challenges globally speaking and even the impact of the Middle East crisis. One country that's in ASEAN at saka yung kanilang prime minister who is very good is Singapore. Yung leader nila, alam mo, every now and then saying the exact reality na kinahaharap ng mga Singaporeans, saying na we will face up difficult times, we will face this difficulty, but the government will find a way to solve this problem. We will work this out together as a nation, as a people, and blah, blah, blah. Singapore leader is doing that. Ini-explain talaga niya sa mga tao kung ano ang totoo at anong realidad at sinasabi niya, pero at the same time, ina-assure niya na the government is working on all of these things together with the people. Pero sa Pilipinas, ang nangyayari, dinideny nila yung current situation, pero wala naman silang ino-offer na concrete solution to the problems na ini-experience na ng Pilipinas. Palaging reactive, late na eh. Kasi kapag gobyerno ka, dapat proactive ka.
Opo.
Before pa nangyari, for day one ng Middle East crisis, alam mo na kung anong gagawin mo dapat.
Opo.
Mayroon ka ng plano, may contingency measure ka na. Lahat dapat yan. Hindi yung tipong ngayon, nagkakagulo na, nasa crunch time na, saka ka pala magkikreate ng tinatawag ng crisis management. Oh my God, that's too late.
Opo. Dito naman po
Totoo
sa
naman eh,
Opo,
Admar eh.
dito naman
Diba?
po sa ibang topic, may kaugnayan pa rin dito po, no. Nabuksan muli yung usapin, no, after ng mga world war, palitan ng mga salita ng mga opisyalis ng mga bansa ng China, ng embahada ng China, 'di ba? Grabe yung ano.
Mm.
Every time na may mga issue involve ang gobyerno, bigla na lang may nagiging issue sa West Philippine Sea.
Oh, the West Philippine
Di ko lang
Sea.
alam ngayon bakit walang issue ngayon diyan sa West.
Mayroon.
Meron ba? Oh, pero
Mayroon, mayroon,
itong tanong ko
mayroon.
ay hindi kaugnay dun sa may kaugnay pa rin sa West Philippine Sea kasi nabubuksan yung joint exploration na naman matapos nga yung mga world war. Ano
Mm.
pong basa nyo rito? Tapos meron pang isa na naman na pinupunan ng Chinese Embassy, yung Strat-based ba yun? Na
Mm.
nag-o-oppose dito po sa issue ang presidente, after nga nung mga, sabi ko nga, world war, naglabas na ng pahayag na bukas doon sa joint exploration. Ito po yung nangyari, sabi niyo nga, reactive. Ito po yung nangyari sa kalagitnaan po na meron na tayong krisis na kinakaharap dahil sa gulo dyan po sa gitnang silangan. Ano
Tama.
po ang basa niyo po rito? Ngayon
Ah,
napapahalagahan ang ugnayan natin with China.
Hindi lang napapahalagahan ang ugnayan natin with China. Nare-reaffirm yung dating foreign policy at magandang ugnayan ng China and the Philippines during the presidency of Duterte, of Rodrigo Duterte. Kasi lahat ito, kung titignan mo, itong joint oil and gas exploration in the South China, the disputed waters of the South China Sea between China and the Philippines, this is not new. Mayroon mutual understanding between President Duterte and Chinese President Xi Jinping during his time, during Duterte time, na itry itong i-push at try to find a way dun sa tinatawag mong constitutional provisions na medyo constraining para i-push ito. Duterte was pushing for this and also advocating for this. And also during the time of Duterte, there was a very good relation with China when you talk about development and economics. Though yung siniseparate niya ang issue ng sovereignty claims natin sa South China Sea, that's a different issue. Let the diplomat handle it. Pero in other areas na walang conflict of interest or conflict between China and the Philippines, Duterte was saying, the President Duterte was saying, let's continue and let's have and explore good relation and constructive relation with China because it benefits the Philippines. Hindi ito bago. This is exactly the foreign policy when you talk about China of President Duterte na nung po si Marcos Jr. binaliwala niya ni-pivot niya towards the United States na hindi na naging balanse ang relationship natin with both superpowers. Kaya tayo, with this situation right now, nasa crunch time tayo, ngayon lang nasabi na, okay, let's reopen the possible joint and oil and gas exploration and possibly ventures with China in the disputed South China Sea. And Marcos Jr. was the one saying na, okay, pwede na tayo, siguro kailangan natin buksan ulit yung usapan. You see, too late. Nasa crunch time ka. Sana kung tinuloy lang niya ang foreign policy ni Duterte, maybe hindi na lang ito joint oil and gas exploration. Probably there was already a joint venture and probably we're not anymore in an energy crisis at the moment. Yun yung mga sinasabi ko na kung sana may wisdom lang sila, kung alam nila kung ano yung dapat gawin para sa bansa, na hindi naman ibig sabihin na you sacrifice your sovereignty or sovereign rights claim in the South China Sea, but you make a way na may magandang usapan at nababalanse mo yung relationship with superpowers, especially China and the United States. E di sana mas magaan-gaan ang pakiramdam nating mga Pilipino na we are secure that we have oil and gas supply kasi mayroon kang venture with China. At the end of the day, it's China who will be paying for all of this kasi wala naman tayong capital, wala rin naman tayong technology without have manpower for technical kung paano gagawin itong mga oil and gas exploration. It's China. What we have to do on our side actually is to find a way na matuloy yan by looking at the constitutional constraint. So ngayon, si Marcos Jr. sabi niya, okay, let's try to talk to China again about these things. Ang tanong din, ang problema din, okay, nagsabi na si Marcos Jr. Okay, sabi ko nga nung nabasa ko yan, that's a positive thing. At least, mayroon naman wisdom si Junior na naisip niya ito. So, okay, good. And out of the blue, there are people like Carpio, even Strat-based right now, the armed forces of the Philippines saying, no, we cannot deal with China, we cannot do that. And, China is not a reliable partner. In the very first place, bakit kayo nag-o-oppose? Hindi ko talaga ito maintindihan. Why would you oppose something that at the end of the day, if you handle it properly and you negotiate properly, will benefit the Philippines in every possible way, especially when you talk about energy security? Kasi hindi ko naman sa akin kasi ang tingin ko dito, I'm working on a paper on this, a policy paper in this right now, and I will be presenting in a conference, international conference around July. Sinasabi ko, hindi ibig sabihin na kapag nakipag-joint and oil and gas exploration ka na isinentabi mo yung sovereignty claim mo, no, not necessarily. You just put it here and let other people negotiate on that. Pero dito tayo sa development project, economic na alam natin na kapag properly negotiated yan at naayos mo, na-tease out mo, definitely the Philippines will benefit. So pero ngayon, AFP is opposing for what reason that the armed forces is opposing this? Do they really understand what it means? Ano ba ang ibig sabihin nito? Siguro before they oppose like strat-based, strat-based is strat-based is already an expectation. I expected them to oppose precisely because they're funded by what? They're also very close to the United States. Oh, come on, give me a break. Kilalang kilala ko ang mga tao sa strat-based at kilalang kilala ko ang strat-based. Kung pwede lang ako magsalita ng everything that I know about strat-based, I will. But regardless of that, ang sinasabi ko lang, what is the main reason why you're opposing it? Is just because it's China? Sino bang gusto nila na mag-partner dyan sa oil and gas dyan sa sa South China Sea? American corporation, na private corporation, not the state, not the government. Who benefits from it? Is it the Filipino people? If in any case maging maging totoo yan, na mga American or Western corporation, hindi naman ang Pilipino magbe-benefit dyan kasi it's not within the hands of the government. It's within the private sector. Pag private sector, capitalist ang orientation yan. It benefits them and then it's still the same. Tayo pa rin ang magbe-bear ng, tayo ang bibili, tayo ang magkukonsume, and tayo pa rin. It's a different mechanism, you know? But China, what China wants really with this is government to government level na at the end of the day ang magbe-benefit at ng whatever proceeds is the Filipino people, and of course the Chinese will benefit from it. Ganun naman talaga, it's a deal eh. So ngayon hindi ko maintindihan talaga ang mga opposition, Carpio, strat-based, the armed forces. Ang gusto ko sa sa kanila, before you even, how do you call that, oppose something, dapat pag-aralan, dapat tignan nyo muna kung ano yung, kung bakit kayo nag-o-oppose in the very first place, at ano yung reason for opposition. Just because it is China? That's very stupid to say that just because it's China. And look, to be very honest, China, between the Philippines and China, actually 60-40, 60 ang proceed sa atin, 40 sa kanila. Ang gastos dyan sa oil and gas exploration na yan, and even if it's possible and if it pushed through, kung magkakaroon ng political will ang Marcos Jr. government on this, and there are agency like the Department of Foreign Affairs na gusto ito, sinasabi nila they're open to talks and all of this, and even China said na, we're open to possibilities and talks. Ang gagastos dyan, alam mo kung sino? Hindi naman ang Pilipinas kasi wala nga tayong capital. Wala tayong capital, wala tayong technology, wala tayong manpower. Sino ang gagastos dyan?
Opo.
China.
Mm-mm.
Oh, so bakit ka mag-o-oppose when it comes to these things? Just because it's China, just because it's South China Sea? So,
Opo. Opo. Baka kasi hindi nakapasok sa...
hindi sila magbe-benefit.
Mm,
Hindi sila ang directly magbe-benefit, at saka yung mga corporations na hawak nila, or
opo.
mayroon silang
Baka kasi dahil doon prop sa hindi nakapasok sa Hong Kong Disneyland. Hindi po,
Oh.
sa makabilang buhay pa naman itong siya yata yung nagtatag nito. Pero lipat lang ako, Prof, may kapapasok lang na balita, nabasa ko dito sa Al Jazeera. May breaking news sila. Ang sabi dito, Iran will withdraw from ceasefire agreement
Oh my God.
if Israel continues to tax on Lebanon. Kasi di ba kabilang yata ito
Oo,
sa kanilang
number 4.
oo na dapat, pero ang sabi ng Israel hindi, tuloy pa rin. So tingnan natin kung anong
Oh, sabi ko nga sa'yo, 'di ba?
oo.
Sabi ko nga sa'yo, ang hirap ng nila. Ang number yan eh. Number 3, end Israel strike against Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Mm, mm, mm,
Sabi
mm.
ko sa'yo, 'di ba? Number 3 mahirap.
Oo nga
O
po.
yan.
Pero dito tayo, Prof, isa pa, maliban sa joint exploration, ngayon, abay, sinusuyo na muli natin ang China na madagdagan yung mga flights. Nagpulong
Yes,
po, no,
tourism.
ang Embahada ng Pilipinas sa hindi pala, embahada ng China sa Pilipinas, nakipagpulong ata itong taga Department of Tourism para nga
Oo.
madagdagan pa. So, nakita natin yung, ngayon natin
You
nakita,
see?
kasi nabawasan talaga ng husto nung pag ikaw ay Chinese, pagkakamalan ka, mga espiya yan, sleeper
Oh,
cell, di
lahat
ba?
na
May
lang.
mga ganong mga termino,
Espionage,
di ba?
spying. Oh. Oh, you see? Again, I will refer to the previous administration of President Duterte. During President Duterte's time, if you look at the tourists na pumapasok sa Pilipinas noong panahon ni Digong, number one, Koreans, I think. Of course, given na yung Korean, may Korean ano na nga sa Angeles City, yung Korean ano village ba yan, mga school na nga sila, churches eh. Marami talagang Korean hanggang ngayon. Pero what I'm saying is, during the time of Duterte, when you talk about tourists sa Pilipinas, number one ang Korean in terms of number. Number two, ang mga Chinese. So, ibig sabihin, ang Chinese comfortable to go to the Philippines to be tourist. Kasi nung time na yun, friendly. Hindi ibig sabihin na Chinese national ka, pag nasa Pilipinas ka, eh, spy ka na agad ng China or ng CPC or something. Walang ganon nung panahon ni Duterte. I'm not saying na walang mga Chinese na gumagawa ng kalokohan. Mayroon din. Hindi naman, common naman yan sa buong mundo. Pero what I'm saying is yung climate of tourism, especially when you refer to the Chinese during Digong's time, is very friendly. Kaya maraming Chinese ang pumupunta at naiengganyo sila na magturismo sa atin. And one thing na maganda nga sa sinasabi ko sa mga Chinese tourists, may pera. May pera talaga yan, bibili yan, magbe-benefit ang local economy mo and even the national economy kasi may revenue ka na makukuha sa kanila kasi mayayaman yung mga yan. May pera talaga sila. Ang purchasing power ng Chinese people is very high in Asia and even in the world. Kaya kung titignan mo, ang mga turista sa Europe ang nakakabili ng mga Prada, kung ano-ano mga ano. Pag pumunta ka ng France and Europe and even in Macau, makikita mo, these are Chinese tourists who can buy luxury goods. Really, that's really the truth. So, nung panahon ni Digong, maganda, pero panahon ni Marcos Jr., biglang, shoot, wala na. And even the tourism industry, bumaba talaga. So right now, dahil kailangan natin ng revenue and supposedly, ang tourism industry natin is supposedly, one of the kumbaga supposedly one of the shining star of the Philippine economy in terms of sector. Eh nung panahon ni Marcos Jr., plummeting. So ngayon, kailangan natin ng revenue, kailangan natin, so nakikipag-usap na ulit ang Department of Tourism. Well, I think nakikipag-usap naman talaga sila. They were trying. Ngayon, mas evident lang dahil sa crisis na, mag-open ng maraming flights ang China na ang exchange of people when you talk about tourism, lalo na ang mga Chinese papuntang Pilipinas, will be more. That is a good step on the part of the Department of Tourism, Admar. I would agree with it. Makipag-usap sa embahada, kay Ambassador Jing. However, one thing that you always have to remember under this Marcos Jr. administration, the climate in the Philippines, when you talk about Chinese tourists and Chinese national, is still not okay. Kasi bakit? Andyan pa rin yung mga ibang departments mo or agency of government, especially the defense and even the not I'm not saying the whole of the AFP, no, but certain sectors or certain figures in AFP, and even you have the likes of Tariela who are very antagonistic to the Chinese, even to the Chinese leadership, and even to to the Chinese to the CPC. If you still have these people who are very vocal in public or very vocal in social media and even in mainstream media saying negative things against the Chinese people, President Xi, the CPC, and no Chinese will come to the Philippines kahit ano pang airlines ang i-open mo, kahit ano pang mga opening ng airlines ang gawin mo from halimbawa Hainan to Manila or let us say Yunnan to Manila, kahit ilan pang i-open mo, if the climate is not good for Chinese tourists in the Philippines, they will not come to the Philippines.
Opo.
So ang sinasabi ko lang, it's one thing for Department of Tourism to talk, to open up flights between the two sides. But they should also work in convincing the other department na, huy, if we want to have Chinese tourism, we want to have revenue, pwede ba? Tone down and let the diplomats discuss issues that have something to do with the South China Sea kasi trabaho nila yon. Wag na natin masyadong i-ano yan, kumbaga, i-politicize yan at i-weaponize yan against China kasi it will not help in it will not help the tourism industry in the Philippines when you talk about Chinese. Hindi sila pupunta sa Pilipinas and it's deliberate already. So, ang sinasabi ko lang, ang gobyerno mo, tulad ng gobyerno ni Marcos, kung ito yung Department of Tourism, ito ang kanilang target, I think the rest of the government, institutions or agencies should cooperate and they should have what you call one nation approach, but there's no such thing. Kanya-kanyang voices, kanya-kanyang tira, kanya-kanyang bida-bida, bawat department. Wala kang synergy ng mga policy na kung saan it actually supports one agency to the other. Walang ganon, walang synergy ang Marcos Jr. when you talk about policy. Another thing before we proceed is, like, for example, open joint oil and gas exploration. Si Marcos ang nagsabi, DFA reaffirm, and then after si Marcos Jr. din may problema. After few days or few weeks, naglabas si Marcos Jr. naming certain aspect of the KIG na asserting sovereignty. Wala akong problema doon kasi it has to be done actually in a way to reassert your sovereignty claim kung may sovereignty claim ka dyan sa KIG. However, the timing is not proper. You ask the Chinese for help. Oil, tourism, and joint oil and gas exploration, and then you put this on the front line. My God, what do you think of the Chinese? Sasabihin ng mga Chinese, ano ba? Gusto nyo ba kaming kausap, makipag-usap sa amin, tapos ganito ang gagawin mo? Ano to? So mixed signal siya. The timing is also not right. I'm not against it, to be frank. But the timing is not right. You need to learn how to do the timing. In politics, in geopolitics, in international relation, timing is important. Walang timing itong Marcos Jr. Walang synergy, walang timing. So, labo-labo siya. Kanya-kanya ng tira, kanya-kanya ng propaganda, at saka kanya-kanya ng bida-bida, bawat department. So, sabi ko, ano ba ang gulo-gulo? So, wala talaga. Walang mangyayari dito. Puro lang to salita at talks. Pero the concrete action, the concrete outcome, hindi natin alam kung mayroon ba. Kasi nga magulo. So yun yung sinasabi ko, ang gulo-gulo.
Opo, at bilang panghuli, nakipagpulong din pala ang Chinese Embassy with DOST Secretary. Nagkaroon din ata sila ng exchange of views on deepening cooperation in the fields of AI, new energy and disaster prevention and mitigation. Ako, baka magalit si nito, Secretary Gibo. Pero
Magagalit ang
last
EDCA
message.
dito.
Last message yun na lang po, Prof.
Oo. Well, actually, maganda naman ito na nakipagpulong sila sa Department of Science and Technology, I think, DOST, I think, no? Sa Chinese Embassy, especially when you talk about technology, especially when you talk about AI, anything related to information technology and AI. Talagang kailangan mo, kung gusto mo mag-improve, China is one of the best number one in this area. So maganda 'yon, at least ma-exchange at siguro pwedeng magkaroon ng mga joint projects on this. So okay 'yan. Pero ang tanong kasi doon, again, sana naman hindi siya i-oppose, i-oppose ng kung sino-sino pa. Kasi to be very honest talaga, Admar, sa panghuli natin, when you talk about geopolitics, when you talk about alignment, and when you talk about the global realities, even the regional realities in Asia, we need to remember and we need to recognize in the Philippines na you cannot do away with China. That is a fact. You cannot do away with them. You cannot continue having this antagonistic relationship with China just because you have a dispute in the South China Sea. Because to be very frank, the dispute is a dispute. But look at Vietnam, look at Malaysia. They're still managing good relation and they're benefiting from China, even there's still a dispute in the South China Sea. So the Philippines must also think about this. You cannot ignore China, you cannot do away with them. They're the regional hegemon and they will emerge as number one. The rise of China is already solid. After the Middle East war, there's no question anymore. The decline of the United States is very rapid. It's declining dramatically speaking, economically, militarily, in almost every aspect. China, at this time, still preserve. Their economy is their economy is still generating 5.5 GDP. It's not 10 anymore, but still very consistent, which is very good. Their growth is still continuing. And in terms of losses, kasi hindi sila mahilig sa gera Hindi sila mahilig sa ganito eh. Wala silang history on that. Preserve ang kanilang economy, preserve ang kanilang military industry and all of these things. So, at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, we need to be wise, Filipinos. We are in Asia. The hegemon in Asia is China. China will emerge as number one in many respects after the Middle East crisis. On the other hand, so kung ikaw ay wiser, you have a good relation with the number one in the world. It will happen, and it's emerging already. And another reality that we need to remember, even in terms of transaction in international trade of oil, anong sabi ng Russia at ng Iran? Transaction na dadaan sa Strait of Hormuz should be paid in RMB already, in yuan, not anymore dollar. And even Russia said, transaction should, kapag sila ang nagsusupply, ang transaction nila, kasi Russia is an oil producing and gas producing and even exporting agricultural product inputs. Ang sabi ni Putin, it would be denominated in RMB. So if you really look at the world right now, there's a shift. Wala na, the petrodollar will go down, magiging petro-yuan yan. So it's still China. So kapag tayo medyo may, wise ka, hindi ko sinasabi na hindi maging ang sinasabi ko, we need to balance relationship with all major powers. And we need to have that constructive engagement and relationship with China. I'm not saying that you follow China. What I'm saying is, you need to have a constructive relationship. Yun ang importante siguro. So yun yung sinasabi ko. Balik tayo doon kay Digong. Balik tayo kay Digong again, presidency ni Digong. Friends to all, enemy to none, independent foreign policy, neutrality, and balanced relationship with United States and China and with other major powers. And focus tayo sa sarili nating development. Huwag na tayong makialam sa mga issue like for example ng Taiwan Strait or whatsoever. Let's just focus on our own problem, solve our own problem, and focus on a better Philippines. Ganun dapat ang tingin ko sa Pilipinas. Yeah.
Maraming salamat, Prof, sa inyong oras at panahon. Sa ulitin po, ingat po kayo.
Salamat, Admar, and I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
Maraming
Good
salamat si
night.
Professor Ana Malindog Uy, isang geopolitical analyst, mga kapartner, na pag-usapan natin unang-una yung ceasefire na 2 linggo po yan, mga kapartner, kapalit ng pagpayag po ng pagpapadaan sa Strait of Hormuz. Pero ang pinaka-latest ngayon, kung papatuloy naman yung pag-atake ng Israel sa Lebanon, hindi raw papasok sa ceasefire itong Iran po, mga kapartner, na pag-usapan din natin yung mga ganap dito sa atin pong bansa. In relation pa rin po dyan sa krisis sa gitnang silangan